This is Akashvani Thiruvananthapuram. 9th of August is observed as Quit India Movement Day. In connection with this auspicious day, today you can listen to an interesting talk by Dr. Parvathy Menon, Assistant Professor, Department of History, All Saints College, Thiruvananthapuram.
The summer of 1942 found Mahatma Gandhi in a strange and uniquely militant mood. Leave India to God or to anarchy, he repeatedly urged to the British. This orderly, disciplined anarchy should go, and if, as a result, there is complete lawlessness, I would risk it. Quit India Movement Day, also known as August Kranti Divas, is observed on August 9th every year to commemorate the Quit India movement that was launched on this day in 1942. The movement, initiated by Mahatma Gandhi on 9th August 1942 in Bombay, was a significant milestone in India's struggle for independence. It's a time to remember and learn from the brave actions and sacrifices of the past, so that we can be inspired for today and tomorrow. The Working Committee of the Indian National Congress met at Wardha on 14th July 1942 and decided to launch a mass civil disobedience movement under the leadership of Gandhiji. The committee later met at Gowalia Tank, Bombay on 8th August 1942 and passed the famous Quit India resolution demanding an immediate end to British rule in India. The resolution approved the start of a mass struggle on non-violent lines in the widest possible scale for the independence of the country. After the resolution was passed, Gandhiji addressed the Congress delegates on the night of 8th August. He said, "Here is a mantra, a short one, that I give you. You imprint it on your hearts and let every breath of yours give expression to it. The mantra is do or die. We shall either free India or die in the attempt. We shall not live to see the perpetuation of our slavery." The following day, 9th of August, marked the official launch of the Quit India movement, with Mahatma Gandhi giving the iconic Karo Ya Maro, do or die call for Indians in a speech during the Bharat Chodo Andolan in order to rally behind the cause of complete independence. Quit India and do or die became the battle cries of the Indians during the movement. Gandhiji was in a dilemma earlier, as the Congress volunteers were justifying violence by referring to his own dictum that it was justifiable in self-defense. Gandhiji did not approve of violence, but did not formally condemn it either. Instead, he held the government responsible for the outbreak of violence. Indeed, neither he nor any other Congress leaders had any control over the people and the volunteers, nor any of them had anticipated the kind of response the Quit India movement had generated. The British attitude towards Indians and their support to Jinnah's communal politics had frustrated Gandhiji. Knowing the mood of the Indians, he believed that the masses could adopt a violent path in self-defense against a well-equipped and strong aggressor. It was reflected in his article in the Harijan in March 1942. He opined that every individual must consider himself free and should act for himself to attain freedom. Thus, he was more concerned about the ends than the means. The Quit India movement demanded an end to British rule in India with immediate effect, the formation of a provisional government after the World War, and the declaration of free India. The All India Congress Committee led a massive protest demanding what Gandhiji termed as an orderly British withdrawal from India. Despite being engaged in Second World War, the British authorities were prepared to take action. Almost all prominent leaders of the Indian National Congress were swiftly arrested without trial shortly after Gandhiji's speech. The famous slogan, "Quit India," was coined by Yusuf Meher Ali, a socialist and trade unionist who also served as the mayor of Bombay. Most of the leaders spent the remainder of the war imprisoned and disconnected from the masses. The British received support from various quarters, including the Viceroy's Council, the All India Muslim League, princely states, the Indian Imperial Police, the British Indian Army, the Indian Civil Service, and from many Indian business people. The primary external backing for the movement came from the United States when President Franklin D. Roosevelt urged British Prime Minister Winston Churchill to address some of India's demands. Historian Sumit Sarkar has identified 3 phases of the Quit India movement. It initially started as an urban revolt marked by strikes, boycotts, and picketing, which were quickly suppressed. In the middle of August 1942, the focus shifted to the countryside, which witnessed a major peasant rebellion marked by the destruction of communication systems such as railway tracks and stations, telegraph wires and poles, attacks on government buildings, or any other visible symbol of colonial authority, and finally, the formation of national governments in isolated pockets. Along with bands of ordinary peasants, large number of educated youth were in the forefront of organizing these subversive actions at night, which came to be known as the Karnataka method. In Karnataka, the movement developed a special kind of political statement. It was a system that saw many citizens of the state become part-time peasant squads, tending farms throughout the day and carrying out sabotage operations at night. Thus, they acted as normal farmers through the day and enacted explosive resistance through the night. In the early hours of 9th of August 1942, majority of the leaders of the Congress were arrested and lodged in prisons in different parts of the country. Mahatma Gandhi was imprisoned in Pune and Jawaharlal Nehru, Abul Kalam Azad and other leaders in the Ahmednagar fort. Once the main leaders were arrested, the movement took a radical turn. The Congress was banned. There were hartals and processions in every part of the country. The government let loose a reign of terror, and there were firings, lathi charges, and arrests throughout the country. The government imposed restrictions on the publication of news about the movement. Many newspapers decided to close down rather than submit to the restrictions. By the end of 1942, about 60,000 people had been jailed and hundreds were killed. Some parts of the country were free from British rule, and the people there formed their own governments. Revolutionary activities continued almost throughout the period of the war. Despite the lack of central leadership, the role played by the younger generations, peasants, tribals, and women was unparalleled. It was a movement of the subaltern classes of India with a bottom-up approach from the grassroots level. It also witnessed the central role played by the Congress Socialist Party leaders such as Jayaprakash Narayan and Ram Manohar Lohia. Further, it also gave birth to some young generation leaders like Aruna Asaf Ali. She was fondly known as the grand old lady of the independence movement and gained recognition for raising the Indian flag during the Quit India movement. Although the movement was initially started as a civil disobedience movement, it differed from other movements launched by Gandhiji. The non-cooperation movement and the civil disobedience movement were conceived as peaceful resistance to British rule. On the contrary, the Quit India movement was a massive uprising from the very beginning to compel the British to quit India. It was the most violent and radical movement supported mainly by the poor and labor class, the hardest hit by the World War inflation. The movement saw the emergence of underground radical activities. The purpose of such underground activities was to maintain popular morale, establish a line of command, provide guidance, and distribute arms and ammunition. Parallel governments emerged in certain parts of India. It was met with violence and repression, but it also demonstrated the unity and determination of the Indians in their quest for freedom. The movement came to an end in 1945 when the imprisoned freedom fighters were released. While the Quit India movement did not lead to immediate independence, it played a crucial role in intensifying the struggle for freedom and garnering international support for India's cause. It marked a turning point in India's fight against colonialism and inspired further momentum towards independence. In the year 1992, the Reserve Bank of India issued a special 1 rupee coin to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Quit India movement. Today, the 9th of August holds deep national significance as India observes Quit India Day. Every year, Quit India Day is observed to commemorate a defining moment in the history of India's freedom struggle. The day is also an occasion to pay tribute to the freedom fighters who sacrificed their lives for the independence of the country. Coinciding with the launch of the Quit India movement back in 1942, this commemorates the defiant spirit that lit the final spark which secured the country's liberation. The Quit India movement failed to end the British rule in India. Yet, this was one movement that demonstrated the will of diverse communities of India to withstand both the high-handedness of imperial authorities and the elitism of the Indian political class. The movement stands apart from the earlier movements in terms of the spirit and enthusiasm that it infused in ordinary people to support indigenous institutions and structures of power. Loyalty to the British government suffered considerable erosion. This also showed how deep nationalism had reached. The Quit India movement established the truth that it was no longer possible to rule India without the wishes of the Indians. It placed the demand for independence on the immediate agenda of the national movement. After Quit India, there was no going back. Also, in this struggle, the common people displayed unparalleled heroism and militancy. The repression they faced was the most brutal, and the circumstances under which resistance was offered were most adverse. The Quit India movement ended in 1945, but not without demonstrating the determination of the masses to do away with British rule. It was anything but non-violent. The support it generated shocked the Britishers, who realized that their fate was near approaching and hastened the negotiations leading to independence. Although the movement did not immediately achieve its objective of ousting the British, it contributed to the weakening of British rule, which ultimately led to the complete independence of India. The Quit India Day is a day to remember the sacrifices of the freedom fighters who fought for India's independence. It is a day to reaffirm our commitment to the ideals of freedom, democracy, and justice. It is a day to celebrate the unity and strength of the people of India. It is a day to look forward to the future of India as a strong and resilient nation. Jai Hind.
You were listening to a talk by Dr. Parvathy Menon, Assistant Professor, Department of History, All Saints College, Thiruvananthapuram. Thank you so much for listening. This broadcast came to you from Akashvani, Thiruvananthapuram.